Finance Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting, which was duly noticed on April 24th, 2026 through posting and notification in the press in accordance with Wisconsin Statute 19.84. So Greg was negligent and did not put together a safety message, but always something on the spot. But as I was thinking, I don't know how many years I introduced the whole safety message thought process. It was when I was nearly first on the board, and I was thinking, what difference has it really made? And when I say that, is the things that we focus on, we make headways on. And my thought process is as critical as safety is for, I'd say, everybody, that's probably the one thing that probably hasn't changed with respect to the school environment. We don't really talk to our students about safety, or maybe that's all we do. And I'm going, so ultimately, I may have introduced this and have been a complete failure because I wasn't enough of a turd to push it and push it and push it. So we've pushed, from an academic standpoint, so are we better than we were when I started whatever year that was? Probably. But from a safety standpoint, probably not. So then I'm going, so what's the purpose of the safety messages? What's the purpose? That's what I'm left with. So I'm going, okay, well, let's get out of the gutter, Greg, because you can't be defeative here, because I know it has been positive because we've shared instances and we talk about things, we look at some things different, but ultimately, I'm like, did it ever meet the classrooms at all? So, and I'll say over the next less than a year, that'll really be my focus, is going, okay, well, from a safety standpoint, what are we doing? So I'll just say, be warned. So then also from that, which I got to actually do some sort of safety message, as we think about the things that, we face each and every day. And does anybody have any idea what's the number one contributor to accidents?
Oh, I knew that. Sleep deprivation.
Dan.
Complacency.
That would be number 2. Nobody, no other guesses?
Oh, sleep deprivation.
I'm not sure that's on the list. That's somewhere down the list. Somewhere down the list, but still, absolutely important. What was that, Gretchen?
I said texting, not paying attention, or looking at your radio dial.
Specifically talking about car accidents?
No, just
Accidents, accidents.
just accidents in general.
There was one.
Not being informed or being aware. Awareness.
But even when we know, that's a good one. So education can be one, but I would say, so when people who are in whatever industry, and we can be a teacher, and we're walking down the hall and we trip and we fall and we hurt our knee, or we don't fall, we catch ourselves and we strain our knee or whatever. Same issue.
Awareness?
They're aware, they're walking.
Proper footwear?
Lack of reporting.
What color you got on today?
Complacency was awful close to it. But it just simply really becomes, we can know all of the right things to do. And our mind isn't really on task. We don't think about what we're doing. So that's a form of complacency, but even it's the next level. We may even go, here's what we're doing. We can think about, here are the things I have to factor in, and then we do what? Not factor them in. We just go. So that's the one thing, it's like, well, moving forward, let's try to to be more mindful, because from a safety standpoint, the biggest thing that we can do as from a planning standpoint, just thinking through. And one of the big pushes overall from a, I'll say more of the industrial side of things is really from a, what's the energy associated with the risk that you have? Energy-based safety. So with that, it's like if we're mindful and we continue to be mindful and we're asking, how can I get hurt? How can I get hurt? How can other people get hurt? And then what are the things we can do to prevent those things? And then pause and say, no, really. How can people get hurt? And then there are lots of things that we can't do anything about. So a lot of times we can't do anything about the person that has their cell phone and texting. We can't do anything about them. So then so what do? You just pay a little bit of attention to what is the vehicles are doing. I mean, I was just driving and semi on the interstate. It was windy earlier today, so earlier everybody was probably paying a little bit more attention than right now, and he just kept over the line. So if I was going the other line and we're playing bumper cars, and I would probably lose. But I was just mine on task. I know when I'm driving, I'm looking out for what other people are doing and trying to be hyper vigilant for those things. So those are some of the things I would encourage us to do. But then also I would say, just ask the question is, what are we doing from the safety standpoint? All right, anybody else? Okay, thanks for the,
Turn on lane control on the interstate. I have it.
oh, you got a fancy car.
No,
Not all cars have that car.
it has nothing to do with it. It's an extra.
But that's what I'm saying. Not all cars even, you can't get that in every vehicle.
That's true. Yes,
So,
you can. You just
not
have to
every-
pay for it.
Well, yeah, anyway. Then that would be money privilege. And not everybody
What's that?
has.
What's money?
Uh-huh. So, anyway, is there a motion to adopt the agenda that we have before us?
So moved. Second.
And I'm also gonna go with that, so that would be unanimously approved. And the first item is review February and March 2026 financial reports and move to the full board. Mr. McCray.
Mr. Dan.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Argery. I do not have a great deal of comment other than to note we are progressing as normal for our revenues. You'll see some bit of a lag relative to our local receipts, which is really related to tax collections, and then by the time that is processed from the municipalities to us. From an expense standpoint, we are essentially right on target for where we were last year.
Any questions from you?
Fine.
Is there a motion to move it to the full board for approval?
So done.
That passes unanimously also. Next is in the area of operational excellence. Hopefully we get there this year from a committee standpoint and title and all that, but that's a different issue. 2.1, report on the district's 24-25 financial audit.
Once again, thank you very much, Commissioner Argery and Commissioners. Included in your packet via board docs, which I know you do not have access to currently today, was a copy of the district's financial statements that were audited for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. What you have at your desk side is an audit report. I'm going to leave the podium, walk over to that phone and dial in Wendy Unger. Wendy Unger is in charge of the district's audit. She's a CPA from Baker Tilly. So if you allow me a moment, as you go through your materials, I'll go ahead and dial Wendy.
Hello, this is Wendy.
Hi, Wendy. This is Dan McCray from the School District of Janesville.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. You are live at the Finance, Buildings, and Grounds Committee. We have 3 commissioners, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Ardrey, and Commissioner Damerhausen, as well as Superintendent Holtzman, and a host of others in the audience. It is all yours. We have your slide deck up.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all for inviting me to do a presentation tonight of the fiscal year 25 audit. As Dan mentioned, the slides that I've provided summarize the results of both the financial statement audit, the federal and state compliance audit, and also our reporting and insights document. I'll go through this presentation relatively quickly, but please, if you do have any questions, feel free to stop me and ask, or I will have some time at the end if you would like to ask questions at that point. That would also be appropriate. So our agenda, going to again go through some very high-level audit results, go through some summary financial information. I've got a couple additional bullets included in the report that I'd like to share some information with, and then again at the end we'll open it up for questions. On the next slide, where I've highlighted the audit results, the objective of the audit is the same as it's been each year. That is to issue an opinion on the financial statements for the district. We've done that for FY25, and we have issued a clean, unmodified opinion, same type of opinion that the district has received in the past. That is the highest level of assurance that you can obtain from us as your auditors. And as noted on the presentation, this unmodified opinion means that the financial statements are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, the disclosures that are required to be included under the various governmental accounting standards and GAAP have been included, and that accounting principles have been consistently applied. And what that point means is that there were no new GASBs or governmental accounting standards for FY25. So it was fortunately a quiet year on the GASB front. Switching to the next slide, some additional audit results before I get into financial information. One of the other reports that we issue as part of the audit process is what we refer to as our reporting and insights document. This document accomplishes many different purposes from our perspective. It communicates any comments or recommendations that may come up as part of the audit process. We're required to have certain required communication with the committee and the district board. We also are soliciting two-way communication for the FY26 audit. Included in that report, which is, again, a separately issued document, nothing that I really need to draw your attention to. It's a very similar content to prior years. I'm very happy to report there were no internal control issues noted. Management prepared materially accurate financial statements. There were no material audit adjustments. So everything from the standpoint of any type of internal control, material weakness type communication, there is none. And again, that is a very positive scenario. Included in that document, we do continue to have our annual communication and regarding the fact that the district does continue to own some stock. It's not a significant amount, but under state statute, the district is not allowed to own stock. So again, we just remind management to look into how that can be liquidated and removed from your books. Included, as I noted, some required communication, again, very normal and customary. The only area in there that I would just remind management and the board of is that there is a section in there where we highlight the various estimates that are included within the district's financial statements. Again, nothing new, but when you think of estimates, think of depreciation and your various OPEB and pension type activity. The last thing that is also included in that document is the representation letter. That is a document that is on district letterhead. It is really representations that are made to us as part of the audit process, and it is signed by management. Moving then into the federal and state compliance audit, and this information is included within the district's audited statements. It's in the very back of that document, beginning on page 54. Just a couple of items to highlight there. As I'm sure you're fully aware, the district expends roughly $17.6 million of federal funds and roughly $91 million of state funds. Under uniform guidance requirements, you are required to have a what is referred to as a uniform guidance, or the old term, a single audit, because of the level of federal funding that you get. So the programs that were evaluated for compliance during FY25 was the special education cluster, the Medicaid cluster, and Title I. I'm very happy to say, in working through those three programs, there were no compliance findings that were noted. Likewise, on the state side, again, 91 million of expenses. In that program, in the state programs, we looked at the general AIDS cluster. And again, very happy to say no compliance findings. So all clean opinions included in that portion of your report also. Switching gears then and getting into some very high-level financial information. On the next slide, this is the financial results of the general fund, so your operating fund. As you can see, the first column is your actual results, the second column is your final budget, and then the third column is your variance to budget. When you look at your revenue categories, you'll note that revenues, actual revenues were almost 1.8 million over budget, which is a favorable variance. Lots of different reasons for that, but some of the higher, the more significant contributions to that, investment income came in $234,000 over budget. There were some property sales of $220,000. The student fee area, that also came in a couple $100,000 over budget. Your state revenues were $679,000 over budget. Some additional school-based mental health grants were received, and SAGE was up $100,000 more than expected. You also had your other revenue category that was $766,000 over budget, and that is the category where you count for E-rate and your workman's comp, dividends, and other miscellaneous type activity. So again, very favorable results on the revenue side. When we look at the expense side, which is the next row there, $148 million of actual compared to roughly $147 million budget. So you were over budget in your expense categories by roughly $854,000. So that's a negative or an unfavorable variance when looking at budget. Really a couple different reasons. Your general education category was actually under budget by $2.4 million. Your business and auxiliary services was $1.4 million over. Debt service was also over by $1 million, but there was a new lease that came in for 25 for your Chromebook, so that affects the expense side that is included in there. And then the other significant contribution to that overage is $580,000 more needed to come out of the general fund into your special education fund to show a zero fund balance in that fund, and we'll see the activity in that fund in a moment. So overall, when you put together your budget, you budgeted to break even, add nothing to fund balance. Ultimately, at the end of the year, you added $918,000 to fund balance, ending the year at $27.2 million of fund balance. As you can see in the table below, there's three pieces to that. A small portion is related to non-spendable activity, and that's prepaids of $909,000. Those are expenses that were paid in FY25, but they're for FY26. So you haven't recognized those out of fund balance, but the cash is gone. So we pull those out. You have some funds restricted for library purposes. That was $225,000. And then the remaining unassigned balance, which is really your working capital contingency, was a little bit over $26 million. That's roughly 18% of your operating budget and within the district's policy requirements. Switching gears to the next page, the first column, these are the remaining funds of the district. So the first column is your special ed. Special education at $25.2 million of revenue, $25.2 million of expenditures, has zero fund balance, which it is required to per DPI requirements. Just to put it in perspective, of that $25.2 million, roughly $9 million comes from Fed and state. The rest of that is funded through your general fund to cover any shortfalls on the federal and state side. So as you can see, a significant portion goes into that fund. The next column is your debt service fund. So you levy tax and you make principal and interest payments. For 25, a little bit different, 28.6 million of revenue. A good portion of that is borrowing. So you had 11.9 million of new debt that went in there, along with $8 million of premium on the new debt. And then the remaining 8.8 million is tax revenue. You paid down 22.9 million in principal and interest and ended the year at almost 6.2 million of fund balance. Debt service fund balance is restricted, can only be used for debt purposes. The next column is the capital improvement fund, 1.4 million of revenue, 750,000 came in from the general fund. The rest of that is investment income. That fund spent 2.1 million and ended the year at a little bit over $10 million of resources for the various purposes that trust was created. The next column is your capital project funds. Again, very large revenue influx during the year. 151.8 million is new debt. Spent roughly 3 million during the year on various capital expenditures and ended the year at 157 million for your future project costs. The last column is your non-major funds, and this can be found towards the back of your audited statements, but this is your food service, your gift fund, and your community service fund. You can see those funds in total had roughly 8 million of revenue and 8 million of expenses. Most of that is from the food service program. So 6.8 million of revenue flows through those three funds from food, and 6.6 million of expenses is from food service. So overall, those funds added 108,000 to fund balance and ended the year at almost 5.9 million. 4.3 million of that is food. That's up 119,000 over the prior year. 1.2 million is in your gift fund, so your Fund 21, and then 329,000 is in your Fund 80 or your community service fund. On the next page, or the last page of information that I have prepared, just a couple bullet points, and I've included page references so you can look at these in more detail at your leisure. But the first bullet point, just to highlight the borrowing capacity of the district, you can borrow up to 10% of your equalized value. That equates to $7.6 billion. You have 156 million outstanding, so your borrowing capacity is 7.45 billion. Two other items to highlight, your other post-employment benefits. This is your health insurance for retiree obligations. There's an extensive footnote based on actuarial data. As of 6/30/25, the liability associated with those benefits is 27.5 million. You have 10 million that is set aside in a trust, so your net liability for those obligations is at 17.4 million as of, again, June 30th of 25. The last item I've highlighted on here is the Employees Retirement System. This is WRS and your participation in that program. As of June 30th, 25, the district's portion of that system's liability was 6.5 million. As I remind governments, keep in mind that fluctuates on an annual basis. Some years that's an asset, some years it's a liability based on market conditions. It's not something you owe or something you get when it's an asset. Again, it's your proportionate share of the funding of that program, and most of the time that program is very close to 100% funded. So nothing to be concerned of, but it is an item that is recorded on your top side statements. On the very last page, again, I have included my email address, my direct line. Happy to talk with any of you in more detail, answer any questions you may have. If you want to talk through things, happy to do so. Feel free to reach out, but I'd also do my best to answer any questions you might have currently.
Questions, Carl? Sure.
I don't think I have any questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question, Wendy. No negative reflection on you,
But you're in Milwaukee, right?
Correct.
And we have an office here in Janesville for Baker Tilly. Why
Correct.
don't we use the local, or don't we have somebody qualified to do it, or whatever?
That is correct. We don't have any individuals in our Janesville office that do any type of governmental work. So our offices that do public sector, public school type work is mainly in our Milwaukee office or our Eau Claire office, and we're working to get our Madison office up to speed.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that for the public, so, thank you.
Of course.
Hi Wendy, this is Commissioner Ardrey, and just a quick question, and I know, well, I guess I've been here long enough, and the audit has improved over the years, so it's good to see a clean audit and no concerns other than us owning stock. But other than that noted item, is there anything for us as a committee board to, I guess, be on the lookout for? If you understand, I know we've cleaned up all of the control issues, we've done a fantastic job. We know the business department has done a fantastic job of cleaning up a lot of those things, and I was just curious, is there any other little tidbits out there other than the stock hanging?
No, nothing that comes to mind that I think warranted any type of written communication. I mean, as all districts are in the position of, having to do more with less, so obviously trying to control spending and that type of activity. I mean, I think the other area that comes to mind is your OPEB. You've got a relatively large liability there, but you're also doing a good job of building a trust that will help fund those costs as they're incurred in the future. So other than that, your federal and state compliance work, the people that manage your programs do a very good job ensuring that they're in compliance with, the federal and state requirements. So again, no, nothing that comes to mind, that, again, I would say, oh, this is something that you should maybe start to think about. Nothing at this point, no.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course.
Appreciate your effort on this, thank you.
Wendy, this is Dan. I think we're good to go.
All right, well, have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Commissioner Ardrey, if I may, just before we move on to the next agenda item, I was remiss in expressing my gratitude to Matthew Sylvester Knutson, our Director of Finance, Tammy Carlson, our former grants manager, fiscal manager. She does a ton of work, and she transitioned that baton to Ezekiel Stairwold, who is our federal grants, state grants manager, as well as some other duties in the business office. It is a team lift, so I have to recognize those immediately, as well as others throughout the district, whether it be student services, pupil services, curriculum instruction, because they're all dealing with title funding and other types of federal and state grants as well. So just a shout out of thanks and appreciation to that group.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Donnershausen had a
One question. This stock, which we're not supposed to own, has been in the thing for several years.
Correct.
Not sure, quite a few, I think.
Predates me, yes, sir.
Okay, but how do we go about disposing or liquidating that? And if we do, where does it go, and are there penalties for having that money?
There are no penalties. If we were to, I'll kind of start in the back and go forward, I suppose, is technically it's a deductible receipt unless it was made to be a contribution to, let's say, as a gift, to which then it would be in Fund 21. You can also have a gift to Fund 10. So I think we'd have to go back and research in terms of the donor's original intent. The issue is they're not in a manila folder somewhere in my office. We don't have the shares. We are just a record of owner. So we throughout the years, worked with Johnson Bank. We've had a medallion signature to try and collect the remaining balance. It is, I don't want to say it's a labyrinth around our neck, right, or a millstone around our neck, I should say. But yes, we want to get that cleaned up. It's not as though, oh, we just need to mail them into the company and receive the check, right? There's some investigation and validation of those outstanding shares. There's no certificates anywhere, so.
Okay, so perhaps it's time to take a look at that a little further, if everyone's in agreement of, moving it out of there, so we don't have that little pimple there anymore.
I don't disagree.
Thank you, Dan. Thank
Yeah, it's been something that's been worked on, but as Dan said, it predates him for a reason.
That's why it's gonna get done.
Dan's the man.
Okay,
No pressure.
all righty, moving on to our next, district response and resolution to April 17, 2025 weather event. Mr. McCray, but before we jump into that, you know, and I guess I was not here in Janesville at the time, I was driving, which was probably not the right thing to be doing at the time. But fortunately, I was driving south and I'm looking at the storm, and I was on the, when you say the tail end of the big storm, I was on the tail end of the big storm in St. Louis. So then I was getting reports back and I'm going, oh my, what did I drive through or what did I avoid? So just a little personal piece to what I didn't experience, but what I could have experienced. So, Mr. McCray.
No, absolutely. I'm going to do a few recognitions, then turn the microphone over, which is hard for me, to Mr. Leader and Mr. Farwell, because there are a significant number of people who have joined us this evening who were in the midst of the storm and responded in a very noble fashion. So Mr. Leader, Mr. Farwell are going to appropriately call those individuals out. I think they are certainly worthy of the recognition for the effort that they faced not only Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and to some extent continue to deal with on a daily basis. We're going to show just a quick video. So that's my prompt. Hopefully where'd it go? Are we? Maybe not. It's a long drum roll. No pressure, Ann. Okay, all right, well, yeah, it was, not quite sure, yeah. We saw it earlier, so that's okay, we'll just go ahead and move on. So really, the intent there of that is Simon Sinek, and just really talks about service, right? And going above and beyond oneself, which again, I think is indicative of the individuals you have in the room. Real quick though, before I turn it over to Mr. Farwell, Mr. Leader, and Julie Yerke, is those were three individuals I was on the phone and texting with. They were navigating in response to assist those individuals who were in our buildings. Keep in mind, this is a community issue, so some of our own staff had their own basements flood, and we're responding to that as well as their work commitments. So again, a great shout out to them, Mr. Leader, Mr. Farwell, Julie Yerke, and a host of others. I do want to, real quick, and I'm about to steal Mr. Leader's thunder as he works his way up to the podium here, but a shout out, if you will, to our friends from Surf Pro. Dave's going to introduce them. We have a local representative as well as a national representative. They've been absolutely amazing to deal with. They've been extremely responsive, and you have in your packet a copy of a report that the district receives on a daily basis from Mr. Lucas Gibson, who is on point here from the national response team. So I talk a lot, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Leader, and he'll take it from here.
Oh, here we are. Thank you, Mr. McCray. So as you can see in the background with these beautiful people back here, these are the folks that were first kind of boots on the ground, right? So I had several calls. We had 6 buildings that particular night on Friday that was affected by the storm in different capacities, right? So these folks, as I arrived to all the buildings, they were at least almost, halfway up to the knee in water, Franklin, Parker, right? But I just want to recognize you guys for your work. You're amazing, and we really do appreciate all of you. And that's from the bottom of my heart. So without further ado, I'd like to read everybody's name off. Franklin Middle School, we had Melvin Crawford, Jennifer Martin, Sandra Flores de Rodriguez, Janice Wallish, Russell Denuelis, Daniela Sanchez, Sayal Hernandez, Jeff Conaway, Chad Homan, Jennifer Clark, and Jason Harding. So those folks at Franklin, could you stand up, please? Right on. From Jefferson Elementary School, Bryce Newmiller. And I just flipped the thing. There we go. Thank you. Bryce Newmiller, Maureen Minogue, Shane Spoden, and Michael Lee. You stand up if, there we are. Thank you. Madison Elementary School, Ethan Taylor, Steve Thiering. Ethan? Parker High School, Josh Higginbotham, Jeff Arneson, Alicia McCormicken, Damon Terpstra, Angie McCartan, Boyd Godding, Larry Ringhand, and Sarah Dutcher. Anybody from Parker? But Roosevelt Elementary School, Josh Upham. Thank you, Josh. Very good. Van Buren, Katie Reed, and Ryan Yount. Good job. Washington Elementary. Boy, I felt bad for you guys that night. Sean McGuire, Jody Salas. And Wilson Elementary, Mr. Mike Manthai. So again, hey, thank all of you. You know what, like I said, you're all the first responders, you are. What you guys did, how you guys shored things up, you sandbagged things, you diverted water from critical areas, right? I mean, look how many 55-gallon drums we filled up, dumping them out the door, right?
We're 30 seconds.
That's right. So again, thank you all. Thanks for using your brilliant minds. We appreciate it.
Dave, can we get a picture of those folks?
Absolutely.
Can you stand in the front here, kind of align yourself?
Can you all come up here, please?
Hey, Dave. Dave, just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So I understand the response. Was there any injuries or anything by anybody?
Zero that I'm aware of.
Okay, I mean, so that's, as I said, we can talk safety,
Yes.
but here's an example of responding to a significant event and doing it focused, getting the job done safely.
Absolutely, especially under stress.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely, absolutely. Well. And that I actually believe. Absolutely get that.
If we could have more than one row, that would be great. Just, we don't have a wide angle lens on the iPhone. Awesome, oh, that's great, thank you.
I'm smiling here, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, you guys can head out. We got another 2 hours.
So we have, we've already talked about our friends from ServPro. I actually have Tim Weber. Come on up, Tim. Lucas, please come up. So when I called these folks that Friday night, the response was amazing. They had people deployed like right now. And is a direct reflection about this man right here, Tim Weber. He's the president of ServPro for his, you have a region, I believe, am I
Yeah,
correct?
four areas, four
Four
licenses,
areas,
yeah.
yeah. So he, like I said, phenomenal. They jumped right on it, and you can see the results at Washington right now. From what was in that building, right, all the wood chips that were in the playground that found their way in the building, grass, mud, dirt, you name it. They have done an outstanding job. Mr. Lucas here, he is a senior project manager for ServPro. Guy's spot on, really keeps people going. So appreciate you both, your efforts, and again, I made a good choice.
You did.
So, all right, thank you guys so very
Yes,
much.
thank
I
you very much.
appreciate it. Lucas, thank you. Before I get into our external support, I also wanted to give a big, huge thanks to David Farwell and Julie Yerke. They helped really triage, that really helped me out a lot with six buildings under duress. It was so nice to have their support to go out there. I'll say, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you go do that, right? And things were working like clockwork. So great internal team. Thank you too. Appreciate it. So we have a very important piece here as well, which is our external support. We talked about ServPro, we have EMC, we've John Bushman, he's our environmentalist. He takes care of all of our environmental needs in the district. He's been to Washington a couple times. We're taking moisture readings, so on and so forth, making sure certain things don't get mold, right? All that good stuff. Hell Mechanical, they've been on site looking at all of our mechanical pieces that need to be replaced and or rebuilt, right? We're in that process. Tricor Insurance, Dan's met with them, I would imagine several times, right, Dan? Westfall, our electrical partner, they've been out to Washington as well, looking at our switchgear that was underwater, boiler components on the electrical side of things. JP Cullen, I got a call from those folks right away saying, hey, what can we do, right? And that is so nice and important, so thanks, JP Cullen. EUA, Architectural Partners, great firm, love working with these guys. We thank you for your visit, right? Your thoughts, they're always very important to us, so thank you. And Schumacher Elevator, we thank them as well. They're a partner for all our elevators in the district. So they're doing an assessment on the current elevator to see what needs to be replaced, so on and so forth, because that elevator shaft and the elevator itself was flooded, so yeah. So we thank all of our external support teams. Great folks. All right, Dan, I want to get the right button.
You're good. Yep, this guy, yep.
All right, continue on, Christofferson Moving and Storage. They've been integral with getting our students' furniture out of Washington Elementary School and moving those on to Adams and Marshall. Very fluid operation. Van Gelder Bus, we had 5 buses at Washington this morning, right on time, very accommodating, so shout out to them. And then Dollar General, I believe they had a donation, and I forget what that donation was, Dan?
Supply donation for every student, welcoming them at Adams and Madison.
So very, very nice. So thank you, Dollar General. Next steps. So we are awaiting the insurance adjuster's report. ServPro remediation continues. Our final environmental analysis and remediation. So that will be a lot of work, combined work with EMC and ServPro. And then our final mechanical assessment and repair. Boilers, air handlers, and then the build back. So stay tuned. We will keep marching forward. Thank you, and do we have any questions? Yes.
So most of this damage that was done, is it covered under insurance? Do we have a policy for flooding?
Yeah, that's a great question, Commissioner Johnson. We have a minimal flood water damage policy, simply because we are not in a flood zone. So it is a low six-figure dollar value. I can tell you, we pretty much have exceeded that already. So from a funding standpoint, typically at fiscal year end, we start looking at any available dollars. Sometimes that's how Mr. Leader receives a new vehicle as part of our fleet. Sometimes we invest in instructional resources such as classroom libraries, simply because we have some funds, some lines that are underspent. Traditionally, and you may recall this from your time on the board, is we actually exceed our actuarially determined contribution for Fund 73. We make the commitment, but the board has elected to go above and beyond, as well as a contribution to Fund 46. So when we look at those year-end contributions, we have to think a little harder about exceeding, as well as perhaps redirecting. It is a significant hit to our budget. We may not be able to get the facilities team a new pickup or two. We may not be able to make some investments in instructional supports within the classroom that are needed, but will most likely need to be delayed. Sorry, I went a little bit above and beyond on your answer there, but that it would have been nice, but it's just not our reality.
I could not imagine having all of those buildings have damage, because I had a building that had a sprinkler system, and the sprinkler system from the fire caused more damage than the actual fire did. And I can tell you that having that many buildings, it probably has exceeded quite a bit. That's probably a really big lump sum. And then the demolition, and then all the equipment that's in there. So yeah,
It is,
for us.
yes, it's, I appreciate Mr. Leader and others working with our mechanical contractors as an example. Everything is in the basement. Pretty much everything was on 5 feet of water, right? So some things, if they were 6 feet, is okay, but we have to do our due diligence, as Mr. Leader and Mr. Farwell and Mr. Yerke can attest to, just to ensure those systems are up and running, as well as from an environmental aspect that it's a safe space to return to. So that's why engaging EMC, a longstanding district partner, is crucial for us. Yeah, it's messy. I appreciate Superintendent Holtzman and Patty Linz Milsna for really getting the word out, because if you were to drive by, you'd be like, okay, what's going on? The waters have receded. Posting the video of the doors opening up as a result, as well as the subsequent damage and the photos. I'm still waiting for a residual check on some of those photos, but nonetheless, that'll never come. But getting that out there, so I think people could certainly understand. But recognize that there are those in the community, even some of the folks still in this room, who experience some damage to their own personal property. So they have it at work and they have it at home. Real quick, going back to insurance, we looked at equipment breakdown, but the equipment breakdown is if the equipment itself breaks down and causes damage, and that was not the case. We're certainly looking at environmental impact. Is there perhaps an environmental aspect to the insurance we cover? It would have not been good had there been structural damage, but that's where our property insurance would have kicked in had there been structural damage, and therefore we could perhaps claim under that. So we have a fairly narrow scope of policies that are covering our work, therefore putting pressure on our already tight budget.
Do you know if we fall under any of that, like the states wanting to know?
Yep.
Like how much damage, like are we gonna get refunded or any type of?
Correct. So the city
assistance on that?
manager reached out to Superintendent Holtzman. We actually had some folks, simply because they want to apply, make the appeal for a disaster area and potential FEMA funding. We'll have to work through that process. As you well know, you deal with this, like we can't wait. So perhaps there's a reimbursement should that designation occur to us as a district.
Okay.
Great questions,
That's
thank you.
good to know that we could fall under those FEMA guidelines, so.
Right, we're eligible, just like the city is, or a private homeowner is. You know, certainly there's the FEMA grant application. I went through that once very early in my career. You know, it's not an easy piece of paperwork to fill out, but nonetheless, it's not about ease. It's about seeing if we can capture some resources to replenish those we're spending from local budget.
Thank you.
Well, I don't have any questions, but do
Oh.
you have something else?
Go ahead, you might ask it anyway.
I'm not gonna ask a question, so.
Oh,
if you have a
okay,
question.
real quick. Has this put us behind, not financially, particularly on any of our other things that we're doing with the referendum?
That's a very good question as well. Nothing related to the referendum. It does put some stress on the system. For example, we are already planning on some of our elementary schools, you'll see this coming up, relocating for summer school. Now we have a fourth elementary school that we need to manage. If anything, from a stress standpoint, our plates, whether it's Superintendent Holtzman, Allison DeGraff, Kim Perenboom, Matt Perenboom, like we already have a lot. This is just an add to that, that we're looking, so it does strain the system. You know, but we will muster up and
But
get
it's
through
not
it.
gonna delay any of the things from the referendum.
It is not. Washington is, I believe, a phase 2B, B? I was gonna say B. It's like at a Bucks game, everyone's, you know, throwing out, yeah, door one. Right, it's a 2B. So that is, you know, down the road. I think one of the things we did want to consider, right, and at 7 a.m. in the morning, these individuals and their staff have been there pretty much most of the night. You know, I show up and ask 20 questions. But I think one of the things we wanted to consider is there perhaps an intersection. So I'm going to dance in Mr. Leader's corner for a moment. Is the system there is all pneumatic, so it's very old. But we don't have enough time to replace that with DDC or direct digital control. Right, so ideally, that's what we would do, so we have to, you know, if you will, make do with what we have to make sure it's up and running, but when 2B is complete at Washington, it'll be converted from pneumatics to all direct digital control. That's why we asked Tori Scholes from EUA, we also asked Randy All from MSA, which is our engineering firm that works closely with EUA, to kind of come out, if you will, kind of coordinate the assessment piece with our mechanical partners Helm, just to see, is there an opportunity? Supply chain design does not afford, we don't have the luxury of time. We'll fix what we have, we'll make sure it's operable, we'll make sure it's functioning, safe, and then away we go. To start school, I believe, on August 20th.
I was a little more concerned on the stuff that's scheduled to be done, and now is any of that delayed?
None of it's delayed, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And my only comment, Farwell?
If I may, I'd like to recognize both Mr. McCray and Mr. Leader as well. That was one hell of a weekend, you know? I wish you guys could see this firsthand. Not really, but it's very, it was a very difficult weekend. It was tough. A lot of these people that were here tonight, the panic, there was fear, a lot of dedication. They stepped up. You know, despite all this, they put our district first. They put our students first, put our buildings first. I think it's important to recognize our leadership. Mr. McCray, stayed in communication with us, but made sure that we were okay. I can't say enough for Mr. Leader. Talk about an unsung hero. You know, we were finishing up around midnight. Thought we were gonna take a break. David gets called back out. He's back over to Washington at 2:30 in the morning. Turns right around, and he's back first thing in the morning, 6:30 Saturday morning, hitting it again. You know, had about 3 hours sleep, and kept going. Then we have Sunday. And here we come Monday. There's no breaks for this man. I'm grateful, for his leadership. I know what I got for phone calls that evening. Phone never stopped from beginning to end. It didn't stop. And I'm with Dave, and his phone never stopped ringing. But yet he was there, and it was kind of a voice of reason, just kind of helped. We did the best we could. And Dave, I'm proud of you, buddy. Thank you.
Oh, Dave, I think you said everything that I was going to say. But, because I know it's often for the jobs that people have. And you can get lost in that, but to do it exceptionally well and the leadership that you guys showed, and hats off to you. And, from the community, because that's what we represent, thank you for the effort. It's exemplary, so thank you. Which we already knew you guys were exemplary, but now you get a chance to actually show it. So thank you.
I appreciate that, thank you.
If I could just add something, so I'm humbled to work with amazing people. Going down in that basement, I was speechless. I mean, it just took your breath away. So I reiterate everything Dave Farwell said. It's an amazing team. Both of those guys were amazing to work with and just did everything that they could possibly do, to help. And ServPro was right there, never missed a beat, just dove right in. But the one glimmer of hope that I experienced last week was I was involved with getting desks and teacher supplies moved from Washington to Adams and Madison. And as I was standing in the hallway at Madison, and desks and boxes were just being rifled in, one after another, and the movers were moving them to their new classrooms. It was also lunchtime, which was an absolutely horrible time for us to arrive with a moving van, full of supplies, with kids everywhere. Stephanie Filter, the principal at Madison, was about to pull her hair out, and I apologize profusely. It was just bad timing. But we arrived, and the kids were so grateful. They knew that these new kiddos from Washington were coming, and were all so excited for these new friends that they wanted to show them around. They wanted to show them their new playground equipment. They wanted to show them the lunchroom. They wanted to show them the gym. They wanted to show them everything in their new school. And just to see their excitement on their faces to welcome these new friends, they kept saying, was just heartwarming to me. They understood what these kids were going through, and it really meant a lot to me just to see that warmth and welcoming atmosphere at both the schools, at Adams as well. I just didn't encounter the kids, but the staff were very welcoming as well. So it just made my week, despite the unspeakable disaster. So I just wanted to share that story because it just meant a lot in the chaos of the whole week. So thank you.
Thank you.
Very well done, Julie. Thank you.
I suppose we'll continue on with the agenda. 2.3, 2024 referendum projects overview and bid package 1 update.
So I would just say probably for the last year plus, it's been fairly quiet from a construction standpoint. A lot of work we self-operated as a district related to our roofing. But now with our friends from EUA, Epstein Union Architects, and JP Cullen, who have been in schematic design and construction documents and bidding, we are about ready to launch that first week in June for both Phase 1A as well as Phase 1B. So I'm going to turn it over to Tori Scholes from EUA, as well as Mike Johnson, who is the pre-construction estimator from JP Cullen. I'll have a few comments, of course, at the end, but here we go.
Thank you, Dan. The last time we did this, Tori, I think it was October of '25, and we hadn't, we weren't as near to starting construction or boots on the ground. So thanks for having us again. And the intent here is a little bit of a reminder, because honestly, I think Commissioner Johnson, you maybe are a new face to me. So I don't know how long you were on this committee, but nice to meet you. So if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt, because some of this stuff may be repetitive. Giving some of the team members with Cullen a little pat on the back and hopefully a little motivation to power through as we start construction this summer of 2026. There will be 6 buildings under construction. So the new faces on this slide since October are Trenton Jensen, Shelley Hanley, Dustin Schwaller, Brooks Empey are some of the boots on the ground people that will be helping support the construction. Scott Llewellyn and Matthew Steplick are the project manager and superintendent team that have been involved with Janesville District work going back as far as ESSER and Secure Pathways in 2023 and perhaps earlier. So if you happen to be touring schools or anything this summer for some reason or other, you may see some of those faces out there. And this is really Tori's slide. This is architectural design, so I don't know if you want to, right? So
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, this is a slide that we've shown before in many of our presentations. We just kind of used this slide to depict the arc of the process for putting a project, from a clean sheet of paper all the way through completion and into the contractor's hands and ultimately over to the district. So, for those who haven't seen this, starting on the left-hand side, we start at the schematic design process, which is a very high-level process. We move from there into the next phase, which is design development, which adds another layer of detail and refinement. Ultimately, we wind up with the construction document set, which then goes out for bid and permit, and ultimately construction. So you can read all the bullet points and bolded text and kind of gives you a good sense as to what's included at each stage, but just know that there's a process to putting these projects together. It involves our team internally, Mike's team at JP Cullen, many people at the district along the way, and that's been an evolving and reoccurring process from the very beginning when we first started the project. So,
Yep, thanks. And just one part of this graphic that I know I've overlooked, but the vertical lines, right? So the design, schematic design development, construction documents, that's the heavy lift for Tori's team, right? Producing physical drawings and specification project manuals. The vertical lines are budgets, right? So that's where I get brought into the mix on, Tori's team provides some documents. I work through the budget. We do budget updates, which we'll get into in the next few slides. And so there's a lot of information on there to process. So if there's any questions as you're looking at that, feel free to interrupt. And then again, this is just a timeline update. Again, a lot of data on this slide, but this is the long-range planning. We've got this one titled a sequence. Across the top, you'll see substantially complete, starting construction, design phase 26, design phase of 27. And then below that, the gray bar. So the gray bar represents more of the construction part of it. So in the summer of 25, substantially complete projects, and what that means is they're at a level of occupancy as far as like city permitting and things go. So some secure enhancements that Craig and Parker and Roofing has done, as Dan mentioned earlier. And also, as Dan mentioned earlier, starting here in June, you can see the schools, Lincoln, Jefferson, Wilson, Parker, Craig, and ESC. So the last time we got together in October, we were working on the design development phase and construction phase, and we're now into the construction mode for that. And then split up in the calendar year of 2026, we have bid package 2, and it's split into an A and a B. So the teal colored schools are in group A, Madison, Adams, Roosevelt. We are currently in that, again, design phase, but we're at a transition point of design development. We'll actually, Tori's group will be sending Cullen a set of documents probably by end of the day this Friday. So we'll be at a budget milestone. And then Monroe and Washington are slated to start their design process in August, with a caveat on, right, what we talked about earlier. We need to process that and make sure that we're making the right decisions collectively for everybody involved moving forward, so. But that was the plan pre-weather event, so. And then everything, the last cluster of schools there, the design process for that list of Chestnut through Franklin will start in January 27. Go ahead.
Sure. So, when we've been here in the past, we've shown some examples of kind of what the process for putting these projects together looks like, and I wanted to share a couple of new images that you haven't seen before. So these are images that our designers, interior designers and architects, use to have conversations with your staff, right? Our team has been meeting directly with the users of these spaces, and in this case, these are two student services spaces, one at Madison, one at Adams. And we use these to help bring that conversation to life, to talk through about how spaces need to function, what sort of support do they need to have, what sort of activities are they doing in those spaces. So we put these together very quickly, and it does a world of good to help bring that information to the top so that our team can then react to it and bring the right space to the users ultimately and give you successful outcomes. So just a couple of examples of how we use technology on our end to help the conversation along and make sure we give you the right project. So.
Quick question, Tori.
Sure,
On
yeah.
that. So I know these buildings, they have their own character.
No, they do. They do.
So with that, was there I'll say a push on the architectural end to maintain their character and modernize, if that's the right thought process?
Yeah, I think that the broad answer to that question is yes. I think when and where we're able to do that, we certainly have been striving to do that. And what comes to mind is the district has several buildings which qualify as historic, right? Adams is one of them, Wilson's one of them, there's a couple of others as well. So in that case, we know that we're replacing windows, right? And so what we have been striving to do is replace them with historically accurate and compatible windows. And that involves having conversations with the State Historic Preservation Office and referencing all of their information that they have, both at the state and the national level, to make sure that we're putting the right parts and pieces back together. In the classrooms and kind of the corridor spaces and other spaces like that, when and where we can, kind of continue on with the aesthetic that was there, we certainly are. So I think we're doing as much as we can.
Thank you. I know Adams is one of those that sticks out in my mind. You go in there, it has a feel to it.
It does,
Unlike
yep.
any other, and it's like, well, it'd be great to maintain it as much as we can, so, thank
Yes,
you.
and we agree with that, so.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
So this is just a higher level representation. Everybody kind of soaks in information differently, so this is a less granular. It doesn't list individual schools, but the orange bar, the orange portion of the progress bar represents the design and engineering phase versus the gray bar, which represents the bidding and construction phase. So the top bar there for bid package 1 or phase 1 is well underway. Again, construction for those cluster of schools is gonna start here in June. And then you can just see, right, like, the long-range goal here is that there will be construction happening through 2029. Somewhere on my notes here, there's a lot of data to take in, but in the summer of '27, as bid package 1 schools are in their second summer and wrapping up to a close, the phase B schools will be at their initiation stage. So there's going to be, in the summer of '27, there will be 11 buildings in the district under some level of construction. And that's, I don't know if that has sunk in on this team yet or not, but it certainly has on our end. So And there will be a similar fashion in the summer of '28, right? As Phase B wraps up and Phase 3 or C starts, there's going to be probably more than 11. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but there's going to be quite a bit of construction happening in the summers of 27, 28, and then 29 as well. And then this, again, just a different graph. It's that same graphic before, but at the bottom, I kind of put the schools in, like, here's the kind of column or the bucket that they're landing in. And if you don't see a school here listed, it's to the left, to my left, I guess, of the schematic design, meaning we really hasn't started the design process. Yep. Right, we got one or two slides out of sequence. That was supposed to be Tori's lead in. So at this point, before we get into the budget or finance part, any questions about designing and the engineering side, or? If not, we'll keep chugging.
I have a question. So on your long-range planning sequence, it says roofing for Washington and Franklin. So that's been completed already?
Correct. Right? I'm not, yep. Correct. Yep.
Okay. So didn't we just have the weather thing with Franklin last week, 2 weeks ago? With
Was
water
it-
coming in?
It wasn't
Is that
roof
part of the
related,
roof that
or-
was replaced?
That was not a roof issue.
Okay,
So the stormwater that was underground storm drains were to capacity. All the rainwater on the roof that goes down through the roof drains had nowhere to go. So that water backed up, went over a pit wall, if you will, to HVAC ductwork, and all that water drained into the ductwork inside the building.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. All right. This, again, I think this is an unintended slide. This slide deck started out with like 20 or 30 slides. It got thinned down. So I would love to elaborate on the differences, the integral differences between schematic design and construction documents, but feel free to see me after. All right, so part of the process, again, those vertical lines in that previous slide, the budgeting, budget monitoring through those different phases of design. The group that I'm leading at JP Cullen is doing snapshot budget updates as the design progresses. And what we're looking for is, the first obvious one is that we're staying within budget. And if the budget is tracking to be over budget or under budget, regardless of which one, as we're working through the process, it helps us define alternative bid opportunities, or we talk about next level opportunities or stretching the dollar. If we have significant budget overages, it may be a point where we have to pivot and change scope of work, look at the things that we're focusing on. But ultimately, by monitoring the budget through the design process, it's eliminating the need, that last bullet point there, reducing the need to redesign and rebid after the final budget. If Tori's team works on a set of drawings and we don't look at the budget until competitive bid, and we get to competitive bid, really, if it's over budget and we haven't done any preparation or expectation for that, it's gonna result in delays. We're gonna have to redesign, we're gonna have to rebid, we're gonna have to do things. By monitoring the budget through the process, it's just responsible practice that keeps the project moving also forward, and it also helps identify areas of challenge or risk or opportunity. So, very critical part of the whole process. And the graphic there, that is the design development budget from what we're labeled Phase 1B. So that was a snapshot in time from Craig, Parker, and Lincoln back in November of '25. So that was shortly after we had our last committee meeting, we got together. So then overall, kind of again, a snapshot in time. So from a design and bidding standpoint, we broke up the bid packages. So bid package 1 was split between A and B, because it allowed, well, for the reason that it allowed us to to design and bid 6 buildings all at one time. So 3 buildings was a big enough lift by itself. So to make it 6 would have been more challenging. But anyway, bid package 1, what you're seeing here is the current competitive bid results would be the current column, 39.5 million, is what the competitive bids came in after all of that design and bidding process. The referendum budget was 42.2. So bid package 1, that cluster of 6 schools back around the first of the years when we bid those, I believe, was 2.6 million under budget. And that allowed us, as the bullet points there I've got, it allowed us to look at, as we've monitored that budget, part of the bidding process, we requested alternate bids for LED lighting at those facilities. And I think Dan will elaborate on that more later. But because of the budget monitoring, it allowed us to pursue alternate bids and pursue some next level work beyond what was in the referendum. And then bid package 2, I gotta put a caveat because we are still at budgeting phase. But it is trending with the last schematic design budget. It's like $800,000 over. And the list of items I've got there for bid package 2, because we're showing a trend of being potentially over budget, we want to look at some exterior stairs at Roosevelt, plumbing fixture unit prices at Roosevelt, and a few options at Adams, meaning the lockers and the windows. And then at all 3 facilities that we'll be bidding is the LED light fixtures. So really what we're trying to do from the budget and the cost financial standpoint is be able to react and have an action plan when the competitive bids come in of here's where the bid results are. If we're under budget, we can pursue extra work. If we are over budget, we may have to reduce rate, look at the priorities, and that's kind of where stairs and lockers and windows, not that they're not important, but if we're prioritizing, those were the things that are being looked at to focus on. Again, so if we have that information at the time of the bid, you know, we only has to pause for a day or two to make decisions versus redesign, re-engineer, and rebid. So the intent on the alternate bids is to allow us to be proactive and keep moving forward with shorter delay in that process. And part of the, which we haven't talked about, but part of the budgeting and design phase, as everything moves along kind of in unison, we start with like that very early slide where we just had kind of 3 bars on a schedule. We get to very specific and very granular details where we show how we're going to approach. In this case, it would be Adams and Roosevelt and Madison. So this schedule, for example, gets bound into our competitive bidding documents. The subcontractors see when does Cullen anticipate to start construction, when are they going to work in the bathrooms, when is the finish date. And so this is a tool that our subcontractors use. We also use it internally. It helps us to define, do we need to allow for winter conditions? When does summer school start? When does start of school? It allows us also to figure out resources and staffing. How many superintendents or site engineers do we need? So when at the peak of summer, when we're gonna have 11 buildings going between 2 different bid packages, this is a tool that we use internally to figure out the staffing. How many job trailers are we gonna have? How many toilets do we need, right? So it gets really into the weeds on how we build the cost of construction and the cost of the work. And that we are at a question, any questions on, I feel like I'm just throwing a lot of data out there, so. Any questions at this time? Okay, so I think we switch over to district update.
Yep. Dave Farwell, that's you?
You need a bite.
No, you're good, sir. That's Dave Farwell doing the clay, absolutely. He is the clay master, for sure. Really appreciate what's not included, but perhaps just a reminder, the district identified over $940 million worth of work, approximately 500 on heavy maintenance and the remaining balance on educational adequacy, right? So we have nothing but need because we are only tackling just under 17% of that identified need, right? So there's lots of opportunities. Keep in mind what we have tried to do, and we did this after our survey, is keep systems whole, right? So for example, if we're doing HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, we have to do the windows, right? So they go hand in hand from a system standpoint. So when we talk about lockers, when we talk about this, that, or the other thing, the ramps at Roosevelt, there's lots of opportunities, but a limited number of resources to address those. Just another gentle reminder that Lincoln, Jefferson, and Wilson will be seeing summer school at alternate sites. So working with Paul Stengel in terms of transportation and staff and faculty and resources, those students will be attending summer school at a different location. Superintendent Holston may have heard this, and Julie mentioned it, in that our students are rather adept at moving. Right, we're seeing that from Washington. One comment was, great, and I got this from Ken Paraboom, new playground equipment, right? So they can adapt rather well. So as we transition to summer school, keep in mind the adaptability. And the ESC will be moving out of here shortly. The entire building, sans our receiving and some maintenance areas will be under construction for the next 10 to 12 months. So we are relocating to the BMO Bank for student services, new student enrollment. It's an easy in and out for those who are wanting to come and register their students in our district. And then the balance of departments will be at 1 Parker Place, the old Parker Pen factory. Business, human resources, and some other departments will be in the old Alliant call center on the 5th floor right next to the radio. Superintendent Holtzman, curriculum instruction, will be on the 6th floor. Superintendent Holtzman has a little bit of a better view, if you will, from that location. We're very, if you will, excited. It's a great opportunity for here at the ESC to kind of go through files perhaps folks have not necessarily taken a look at for some years and go through some things. So it is a little bit of a cleansing mechanism as we relocate out of this building. Just also as a reminder, the intent was to kind of keep us together and be not disruptive to our school buildings, which are not set up for nearly 100 people who have office and conference room spaces in order to conduct their work. So a little bit about the ESC relocation during the summer as well as our other buildings. Mr. Johnson does a great job in terms of tracking the, to some extent, overall budget, but really focusing on the construction budget. Julie Yerke, myself, Matthew Sylvester Knutson are kind of always looking at the bigger budget, right? Not just the construction budget, because there are things that Mr. Johnson and I reference, such as roofing, that the district is self-opping. Right? We also are in charge of, paying the architectural and engineering fees, the abatement fees, should we need to undertake abatement or testing for asbestos. So there's lots of things outside of the construction budget. So lots of numbers and lots of moving parts, if you will. The district is tracking, obviously, our bonds, 151.8 million, excuse me. We're also looking at the district earned interest. The majority of our investments, because of the size of our bond issuance, and you may recall this from prior finance, buildings, and grounds committees, are invested in slugs. So it's an IRS tool, state and local government. Our interest rate is a little bit lower, but nonetheless, and you'll see just a little bit the interest dollars that we are earning. And then down the road, as we begin to make improvements, any rebates, if you will, dividends from Focus on Energy come right back to the district. We then apply that towards our debt service or the overall Fund 49 capital projects. We can't use that for general operating purposes. Expenses, as I alluded to, construction budget, congratulations, that's Mr. Johnson. And then the district budget is Julie, Matthew Sylvester Knutson, and myself. This is a graph that Matt and I put together. He had to break out the crayons for me. But if you look at sources, if you will, think sources, not just necessarily revenues. But as of March 30th, the district has earned $4.7 million in interest. Right, so when Mr. Johnson and Mr. Schulz talked about LED upgrades. We are feeding some of that LED lighting upgrades off of that interest. We're kind of under budget, making some other modifications across the line. So those are sources. Uses are things that are perhaps out of scope that we are then committed to, such as LED lighting. And tracking the net is most imperative. So far, in the aggregate of everything from interest earned, adjustments within scope, as well as the construction budget, we are currently 4.8 million under. Keep in mind, we are going out. Ms. Yerke had an exceptional observation, and I think Mr. Johnson and Mr. Schulz would agree in that, the longer we can get, when we look into the future and we solidify our documents, then the better off we are at the bid process, right? So it allows our contractors to respond and not necessarily react, and that response is more cost-effective than a reaction. Shifting gears a little bit away from the finance, and maybe just a quick question or two from the board. Mr. Damerhausen, you recently purchased a vehicle. Within the last 2 years?
A little over 2 years.
Okay. What did you look for in that vehicle? What was the driving force for that purchase?
New car.
New car.
Want efficiency, and all the other bells and whistles you get with a new car.
Absolutely. Were you looking at the car and its features, or were you most concerned about the engineering aspects, if I may ask?
I think equally both.
Okay. Okay. I was hoping for a different answer, but I'll go with that. No, very good. So thank you. Thank you for playing along. If you go way back, and this was even before your tenure, Ms. Johnson, on the board, as we were looking at the different systems, from building automation systems to lighting, to fire, to cameras, to card access systems. That's what that diagram on the far left, if you will, represents. We're all over the place, right? But what we needed to do is really get to an ecosystem management software to where we can manage this. Now, the building automation system will probably not be part of it, but when we talk about our overhead paging, our clocks, our bells, our cameras, and our card access, what central software, if you will, is running that? Right, that's the right side of the screen that you see there. So there's still some differentiation, right? The phone system is not going to be managed by an ecosystem, but we went through a selection process with Brian Erskine and others, Julie, Dave, and probably many others, to go through the selection, and we actually landed on Motorola Avigilon to manage our card access as well as our camera system. And then there's interplay between those safety features with overhead paging clocks, because they're not just a hand clock anymore, they're a digital readout. So if we have a tornado or a weather warning, how are we managing the communication of that? So again, we're partnered with HBS, which is Heartland Business Solutions Systems, to really work with Motorola and the Avigilon system to upgrade that. Some of our challenges really is we are in that orange box, yellow box, right, which is really the detailed engineering of that ecosystem. So a building principal may say, hey, you put in the doors and I have the card access. When do I get to manage that? We're not there yet because we're building, if you will, the nuances of that software, because there are permissions and other things that we need to consider as a district. What we're seeing, if you will, is almost going from a key system to an electronic system. And that takes a lot of thought. And kudos to Brian Erskine and his team, as well as our partners from HBS, Cullen and EUA, MSA on the engineering aspect of it. These are the things when you buy a car, Mr. Damerhausen, that I certainly don't think about, such as the rear slip differential, torque value, how the brakes work. I just want them to work. But there's an engineer who's designing all of that. And that's what's going on behind the scenes, even to this date. We are getting very close. That green arrow there, if you will, represents where we are at in the process. We've done some training, but we still continue to fine tune. Want to go back, because I thought I had actually an extra slide here. All right, and you'll hear a little bit about this from Mr. Farwell as he steps up soon to talk about the building automation system. Think of them as, to some extent, independent, all right? But think as those systems become more sophisticated, all right, what resources do we have to manage those systems? All right, and you'll be hearing a little bit about that more in May. Any questions?
So as I tried to quickly peruse what Mr. Johnson put up, and then I guess this is the latest. From what I gathered through the bid process and all of that, we saved about 127,000 through the bid process of both packages.
Would you like me to go back further, Mr. Ardrey?
Well, I don't know if we need to go. So I was going to kind of where we were at from an overall summary, that's why I
Yep.
just went. So, and that's why I said it appeared like we saved about 127,000. How did I come up with that? 4.7 was an interest earned,
Yep,
and our net now is 4.8 under.
sure.
So the difference is 127,000.
Got it. Yep.
So that's what I was saying. So that was what the bid process yielded for the packages, and I'm just verifying, am I looking at that correct?
At a very high level, yes.
Yeah, well, that's all I was
Yep,
just.
yep, at a very high level. You know, some of the things, whether it's a scope change, right, whether it's alternates accepted, right, that's where sometimes we could be below budget, but as I referenced, you know, your LED lighting is driving up that cost.
Sure.
Right, so if we pulled out some of those extras, we would be even further below budget.
Including next level, so at some point, well, I won't be here, but we can list out, you know, the extras that we were able to accomplish
Yes,
by the bid process and all of that. So in spite of any of those wonderful changes, we were still 127-ish under budget. I guess that's really what I was getting to.
yes,
Okay, all right,
thank you.
thank you. Any- All right, let's see, next
All you, Gretchen.
is update on district capital maintenance and 2024 referendum projects.
There's no slide deck for that. They don't have to, that's for the DAS.
Sorry, just an update on Phase 1 Ball Diamond projects for Craig and Parker. So that was for one softball and one baseball diamond at each location, at each high school. And it was almost complete, and then the flood happened. So we do have damage on the two fields at Parker that were nearly complete. So we will have some storm cleanup on those two fields to rectify the situations that happened there. So that project should, hopefully will be complete within the next couple weeks. We did go out to bid on Phase 2, which would be 2 softball fields at each high school and 1 baseball field. So the second softball field at each high school is more of just a rough practice field, so all we're basically doing is just infield work and a short backstop fence at Craig, nothing at Parker. So that is a very light area for that second softball field. But we did just get bid results back, so we're in the process of evaluating them. And that project would start then hopefully in June. So that's kind of just a quick update on that. You have a question?
Make me ask all the
You
questions.
can ask.
I know, well, I was going to.
Yeah, go ahead and ask.
So someone that has been around a long time at night, including me, I'm thinking about our almost former commissioner, I guess Board President Murray. Visually, what will he see different from what has been there to what will be done? And you don't have to answer that now, but if we can capture,
Yes.
you know, and somehow what was different, I think that would go a long way.
So I actually had a drone scheduled in the fall, and then when it's complete, phase one is complete, I'll have them go back out and take a view, and so we'll have drone footage that'll
Awesome.
show, hopefully in May. So
Okay.
that will be complete, and then we'll do the same thing once phase two is completed, so you'll have a nice view of the project as a whole.
So I knew that, I just
Yeah.
didn't say that. So-
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, okay, anything else? Oh, thank you.
Okay, sure. I'm also just gonna give a quick update on roofing projects. So our roofing project for the summer is Kennedy, and it will be getting a full roof. And that will begin on May 18th at a cost of 1.25 million. So that is our only scheduled roofing project for the district this summer. So my quick updates. Any questions on that?
Thank you.
You're
Guess we
welcome.
can't think of Kennedy as the new building anymore.
Yeah, it's not as new as people think.
It's brand new. You're putting a roof on it?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Just a quick update on Craig's chiller installation. The chiller is fully installed, which is great news. This Friday, pumps have been kind of hard to get, so we're anticipating we'll have the pumps Thursday installed on Friday. Monday, May 4th, the entire system will be cleaned. And then Friday, May 8th, factory startup of the chiller system will take place. The only caveat is there is kind of a shortage of glycol. We're having a tough time getting glycol with the stuff going on in the Middle East. So what we're going to do is we can also use water for the chiller system. So that's what we will be using in the interim until we can get glycol. So, any questions on Craig's chiller?
How does water and glycol intermix?
Right now, I mean, we're just using straight water, not glycol.
Right.
So you want to use glycol or you want to use water?
Yeah,
But
but
not-
eventually, we have to get rid of the water
Sure.
to do the thing. In other words, somehow, as thoroughly drain it as possible.
Correct. Yes, and it will. Yeah, they'll blow it out, they'll blow the system out, all that.
I
So,
see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yep.
Mention the $60,000 to $90,000, the $30,000 increase.
So there was a $30,000 increase for the cost of glycol to fill that system.
The original budget was 60,
Yep, now we're to 90.
we're at 90 due to events in the Middle East. And we don't have it yet.
Correct.
Is it something that we've already ordered and we're waiting on it? Is that the case here?
It was ordered, that was ordered quite a while ago, wasn't it? From what I remember?
I'm sure it was in
Yeah.
queue.
Right.
Right, it's a commodity, so.
Right.
Disruptions in the supply chain.
Thank you.
All right, next item, information on the district's building automation system. Mr. Farwell, I take it? So, and I wasn't sure on whether, the question that I did have, I know it's somewhere between the Daves. And it is, as we have experienced the weather ranges, you know, and maybe it's an automation system, maybe it's a system to keep track of. One day it's almost 80 and the next day it's 50. Our systems don't track that.
No.
So So then I guess I would say, what are we doing? What do we do in that circumstance? Or we just deal with whatever the system is?
Right side.
Perfect, thank you. So to answer your question in regards to fluctuations in temperatures, so within the building automated system, you have parameters set for example, there might be a dead zone where, call it shoulder months, which would be in the spring, in the fall. So, for example, if the temperature were to get below 45 degrees, that would enable the boiler to come on. I don't have the exact set point. So the boiler well, let's say even 50 degrees. If the temperature, ambient temperature goes below 50 degrees, the boiler's enabled to come on, keep it to warm up. Anything below 50 degrees. So then there may be a dead band between, let's say 50, 55, where nothing really happens, might be 60 degrees. You get above 60 degrees, of course, that boiler's gonna shut off at the lower temperature when it reaches that set point of 50 degrees outside ambient. The AC will be enabled at, let's say 55 degrees, because now it's anticipating on temperature rise. It's gonna enable the chiller to come on and start pre-cooling as the day gets warmer during the day. So there is some ability to, depending on if the building is a 2-pipe or a 4-pipe system. If it's a 4-pipe system, you have the ability to do both heating and cooling at the same time. Some folks do that they'll have the heat going at the same time as the AC. That helps dehumidify the building. A lot of the old systems are 2-pipe systems. You can do either just the AC through chilled water, or they can do heating. So then you have to let the cold water loop warm up to, basically room temperature, because you can't run hot water through a chiller, and you can't run cold water through a boiler because of condensation. So as we upgrade, in some cases, to a 4-pipe system, you could do one or the other, shut one off or the other one off. So, I hope that answered your question.
Well, I kind of knew the answer.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No. But for other people to understand that's what some of my questions are for. So then I would say the next level of information is, and this is a scary part, which buildings do we have or which? So, and we don't have to answer it now, just at some point, for general information. Because historically, before we had any 4-pipe systems, it was a date change that either it was where there was cooling available in portions of building, that was at a certain date we went to that. And then at another certain date, we went to heating, so. And I know we're somewhat in flux of that now, so.
Right.
I've been around too long.
Yeah, you're a smart one. Yeah, so with the building automated system, we can, look at outdoor air temperatures. The building will accommodate what that is, again, with set points put into the HVAC program. We could look at economizing if in the early morning hours of summer, it might be cool. So I'll bring in fresh outside air, and we'll use that natural cooling to cool a building down prior to turning the AC on. So there's an opportunity to do things like that. Of course, we have building schedules. We can turn buildings on and off. We can customize a building depending on its usage. We can, for example, if you wanted to get into the nitty-gritty, the sun rises in the east, and at least the last time I checked. And so you might want to start some of your AC units or some of those areas earlier in the morning to the east side before you just slowly phase things to the west side of the building. So you might want to pre-cool the west side of the building before you start things on the east side of the building. Depends on how technical you want to be. I'm sorry, what's that? Yeah. Well, we kind of do have our own data center in the respect that not only can we see all of our buildings at one time and kind of any particular building, we have the ability to set up histories from almost like a forensic standpoint. Depending on what perimeters you put into your HVAC system, you can catch valve settings, look at your outdoor air temperature, airs that are coming into your unit vents, into your HVAC system, or in your air handling units and whatnot. And if there's a problem, sometimes you can go back and just kind of track the data to see where maybe problems had began. Let's see. Also with the HVAC, we can look at, well, we're getting some nice graphics here we can kind of geek out on. But yeah, you can kind of see things, have a real nice overview of the buildings. We have an alarm system. So if we go into a building, we can see that there's an alarm that's indicated. We can go in and explore that a little bit further. Sometimes it'll be a temporary alarm that, depending on how the perimeters are set up, it'll come on, and then as things warm up, perhaps, the alarm goes off into a green, it goes into a green status. You're going backwards here? Kind of covered a lot of that. Here again, we can lower utility bills by optimizing a schedule, customizing buildings. We have an event, excuse me, taking place on a Saturday. It might just be the gymnasium, auditorium, theater, and we can wake those parts of the building up on a Saturday, Sunday as they're being used, and keep the rest of the building in sleep mode or at a minimum temperature. What else we have here? A lot of it is repeatability, making sure that things are accurate, that we're maintaining temperatures. If you go outside of a threshold, you kind of be given an indication that you may want to be within 4 degrees, let's say 68 to 72 degrees. If we're within that area, we're in real good shape. If we go outside those perimeters, you go above or below, there's probably going to be an issue. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
For our minutes, could we change the language a little bit? Rather than lowers utility bills, we can say lowers utility usage.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah,
'cause
that's
we don't-
exactly correct, by shedding demand, yes. Oops. Click, click. I'm going backwards here? Okay. All right. Can't speak too much on the bids, right of hand, myself anyways, more operations. How does BAS function? So when we go into the BAS system, you can see here we're using Marshall Middle School as an example. That's our front page. We have a menu on the left with all the schools that we can easily access. Here we can access our air handling units, our zone overview, boiler, chiller operations. We can see incoming temperatures, outgoing temperatures, to and from boilers, to and from chillers. And within that, we can interpolate information. We want to keep our outgoing and incoming water or glycol within a certain limit. If things start falling outside of, let's say, for instance, 10 degrees, we start getting 11, 12, something's a little bit wonky. We have to then determine how do we bring that back into range. We can look at different floor levels, and I think you'll see that here in a moment. There we go. So we have an overview of this particular section. This is section A. When things are out of range, this is a good example. Room 1205, it's at 74.9 degrees. Then we can go into that, we can dial into that and see what's going on. It could be a valve that we're having an issue with. Maybe the set point's not correct on it. So each of the rooms are color coded for condition, and like the red would tell you that it's a little bit out of calibration, depending on what temperatures you're running. So this gives us an overview of the air handling units. These are the engines for each zone. So within the building, you have, be like having multiple houses under one roof. And in this case, we have air handling unit for the music, locker rooms, gym, cafeteria, kitchen, classrooms, library, then classrooms 8 and 9. So each of those have their independent air handling units. They work independently of each other. Though they're under one roof, and we like them to work together, they are working independently. So someone might say that it's cold on this side of the building, and it might be that maybe we threw a belt, and we can determine a lot of things by looking at this data. We can look at our valve positions and our heating valve positions. For example, some of the information we can tripulate. If you see a valve position at 100% open and it's 55 degrees in the air, or excuse me, 55 degrees in the classroom, we can pretty well determine just by that information that the valve is probably not working. We can identify that issue relatively quickly. The same is said with the chilled water valves. We can take that information, looking at the valve. We'll see a graphic here, I think, in a second. That the information you see here should correlate with the graphic or the discharge temperatures. And then here also, you can tripulate the information. What you have is outside air, ambient air coming from the outside, fresh air, also mixed air temperatures, and return air from the classroom. So we take a percentage of fresh outside air, mix it with the return air coming from the classroom. So we're meeting fresh air code. There we go. We put arrows on there just for easy visualization for you. You can see on the right-hand side, that's air temperatures coming back from the classroom. On the left-hand side, that is outside air. And so you have outside air and return air from the zone or the classroom being mixed. And so it's blending those air temperatures. And then it's being discharged, it's being filtered again. It's being filtered, and then it's being heated, heating the air, or we're cooling the air, or dehumidifying the air with AC and removing moisture from the zone. And then it's put back into the classroom again. And there you can see different temperatures, mixed air. We got erroneous number there, minimum outside air set point. Obviously, there's a problem with that particular controller at this time. This is kind of more of the same. We have set points for air volume that help us meet code. Might be 800 CFM or cubic feet of air per minute. So we can show what design specs are versus what is actually coming into the area. And then you also see your set point to on the lower right of your screen, 70.0 degrees. And that's your night setback, 55 degrees. That's where you can optimize energy to. There's nobody in the building at that time, so you can crank back your heat overnight, let it cool off. Nobody's there to get chilly. Then we start that up early in the morning. So then you see design set points in the lower right, and then also what's actually being delivered in the classroom. This is part of the building schedule. So you can put a holiday, put an exception on there. If it's over, let's say a holiday around Christmas time, you might go ahead and put those buildings essentially in hibernate, put them to sleep while nobody's there, and maintain a minimum indoor temperature. This is where the magic happens with the schedule. With this particular example, the building starts at 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. This is a good example where on a Sunday in this particular area, maybe they have an all-day event where it goes till 9:30 in the evening on, let's say, for instance, a Sunday. And that might be, a theater or something like that. When that's not happening, we dial that back to a minimum temperature or minimum schedule. So we can do a lot with the schedule to shed energy demand. The end of the slide. What'd I do?
Well, that's a wrap.
Okay.
No. Well. Here, let me help you out here.
I'm sorry, I don't know what I hit there.
Nope, you're okay. It's all good.
Then you ask.
How far were you?
Keep going. Keep going.
Yep.
Yeah.
Scheduling?
Yeah, we're on scheduling.
Okay.
You're right there.
This is where I come in.
Well, there you go.
Here we go.
So do you have any questions on anything that was covered under BAS?
When you turn the heat down,
Mm-hmm.
how do you determine when you turn the heat down in a building to save energy?
Yeah.
How do you determine when to turn the heat back on so that when the staff comes in, now it's warm?
I think it's kind of a dance where each building has personality, depending on what it's made of, maybe the age, infiltration, outside windows, is it inside rooms, if it's an outside wall. I think there's special considerations you want to put in place. If it's an outside wall, you want to be careful because it's January 15th and that cold's going to really push in the night. So you might want to keep that outside, minimum temperature a little bit higher. You kind of figure out an algorithm, what works best for building. You kind of customize, you just know what you know. And so if we see, let's say, this would be a good example for a trend, where we'd set up a trend or history in the system, and you can see, it was a little bit chilly, because you kind of want to meet You might start the units up at 5 a.m., so by 7 a.m., it's at room temperature. And so you can kind of mix and match as you need to meet that demand. So when folks show up, that they're comfortable.
I did have one question, only because it's an automated system, but is it a learning system yet? Or will the future be that based on the use of the buildings and the things that you've said, will the system learn to say, here are my ideal set points for the usage and occupancy and schedules and all of that?
You know, I think that's an excellent question, and I've had the same questions myself, where, you know, perhaps with AI, you'll start recognizing these points, because I have a lot of questions, exactly as you do, that you would think would learn itself, or you see that things are, you know, 'cause systems are kind of dumb in some respects, because you have to tell them what to think. So the more points you have, more information, more data gathering that you have. And I'm hoping at some point that, you know, there's a lot of industries that could probably be combined into HVAC or technologies that could make it better. And I don't think the system's there quite yet. I would like to, you know, I'd like to be optimistic, and I think it's going to probably go that way, because I think, you know, I think the industry is going to demand that. And I think it's great questions like that that's going to push this to have higher expectations for our HVAC systems throughout all platforms.
Okay. All righty,
Thank you.
thank you.
Do you have anything? No. Thank you.
Okay, next, two is Dan McCray.
But thank you, Commissioner Ardrey. Just a bit of a preview, building the capacity to manage and maintain the building automation system. So I appreciate Superintendent Holtzman's question in terms of, so how do we manage this? How do we make adjustments for occupancy? What we have done fairly well, but certainly what we can do much better at, is really managing the building automation system from a scheduling and monitoring standpoint. Right, if you're not measuring, and a building automation system, I would say, is a good measurement tool, then how are you managing that system? For 2.1 million square feet across 19 sites, the district has made a committed investment. How are we managing that investment? Because even in your home bill, you may say, well, here's my utility rate charge, but there's also a demand charge, right? So timing that demand in terms of your startups for your building, whether it's natural gas or electric, right? You really need to manage that. I'm a little bit on thin ice as I look at a former employee of Alliant Energy, and I'm talking about utility charges and demand charges, but demand charges are rather significant for us in the district. How are we managing a nearly $3.1 million expenditure between water, natural gas, and electric? And $500,000 of that relates to water, 2.6 million relates to natural gas and electric. At Craig and Parker alone, our utility costs last year were $1 million. And I'm giving you an ish number, right? Can we carve out 5% of that by managing the system? Then that's a $50,000 savings. Can we carve out 10% of those two buildings? And that's a $100,000 savings, right? And we're just managing two buildings, let alone the buildings throughout the district. It may require an investment in terms of actually managing the schedule that Mr. Farwell was sharing with you. That's a committed resource. Prior to 2012, we had an energy manager in this district. We have not for the last 14 years. We record our energy costs. We do what we can, but to actually manage that, you need to pay attention to it.
So just for clarity, as he was talking demand, and just so everybody understands, what does that really mean? So the systems need to be able to meet the demand. So if every building is at max potential, the system has to be able to meet that max potential. So the utility company will charge every, well, it isn't for homes, but for all of the other industries, to be able to meet that demand, the utility will charge for just that point. So if the, and I'll just use small numbers and say if the demand is 10, then there's a charge for that 10 where the normal usage may only be 4. So maybe simplistically, ideally what we would like to do is lower that 10 to be somewhat closer to the 4. We won't get to 4, but maybe we can get to 7. So then, as you schedule startup, you don't hit the demand, so you're not paying extra for that. So,
Yeah, excellent point. I do want to applaud Mr. Leader. So think of variable frequency drives as your accelerator. You don't slam on your accelerator to start. And that's exactly the same thing we don't want to happen in our buildings, particularly during a peak demand time. So we're gradually hitting that accelerator. That's the beauty of a variable frequency drive that Dave has really looked at installing throughout our building projects over the decades. That's great, but we still have to manage that variable frequency drive. The entire building doesn't go on at one time. It should not. How are we managing that?
thank you. Any questions? All right, thanks.
So there's no slide deck for this particular presentation. There were a number of notes within board docs, which I'm sure you all are aware of, is currently offline. So this was meant to be a short presentation. I'm just going to hit a few highlights. I know the evening is getting long. Certainly appreciate your patience. Want to talk a little bit about the April referendum results. You received a lot of information in board docs. If you had the opportunity to review that prior to the system going down, you saw a highlight sheet from Baird Financial in terms of the essentially 61% passage rate for all referendum on the April ballot. You also saw a really good article from the Wisconsin Policy Forum that provided some analysis in a more narrative form than what Baird did. Spring elections are solid, right? Fall elections are better. The board will have a consideration most likely this August in terms of a potential operational question for the fall election. But I know you all get hit with a lot of questions. Why the spring? Why the fall? What makes sense? Administration, and I believe Superintendent Holtzman and I are aligned, is the fall is a great time to go. That was just kind of the quick down and dirty in terms of the referendum update from the state perspective this last April election.
Well, it would seem fall, there are more voters. So more voters, there should be more people that care about the schools. So that's simplistic. Okay. All right, rolling on to the next one, the Moody's rating report.
Just wanted to give you some detail, if you will. There's a lot of detail in the board docs page relative to the district's A82 rating, which is a very good rating. But it also has an operational budget consideration as well. There was no foresight. This agenda item was developed before the flood. But when we talk about fund balance, and you saw a report from the auditor this morning in terms of we increased our fund balance. We are just over the 17% in terms of board policy. 17 to 23% is the fund balance. And we even contributed $800,000 plus to the fund balance this past year. Oftentimes, as board members or as administrators were asked, can you just tap fund balance? The short answer is you could, but it would be to the district's detriment if there was no plan to replenish that fund balance. In a limited revenue environment, replenishing the fund balance is not always an easy task once you tap that. I think there was some math involved in your board docs document relative to the savings that the district incurred simply because, or cost avoidance, perhaps not savings, the cost avoidance the district incurred because it had a strong rating, AA2.
Is it realistically possible for our district to be any higher rating than that?
Excellent question. Thank you for teeing that up. We could be a AA1 or a AAA. So when we look at the district, right, and thank you for setting that up, it's not only looking at the district's financial performance, but it's also looking at the geographic region. What does Rock County look like? What is unemployment? What does business and industry? Is there investment? There are a number of factors, but certainly the district, which is what you all are in charge of, right, has a significant role in terms of determining that bond rating. Whitefish Bay has a AAA bond rating. Right? We're not Whitefish Bay, right? When you look at the composition of that community as compared to Janesville. I don't know. I think in the chart there you kind of saw some differentiation between the number of districts. Like we are in certainly the upper quadrant. We are not in the lower quadrant, which is good. And you may say, can a district, there's a district, not Milwaukee, but Milwaukee is in the name of the four-letter district that at one time had a much lower bond rating than it does today. And that is a detriment from a district planning perspective.
Next item, update on the District 26-27 budget development process.
Last slide deck, we're almost out of. Thank you. Appreciate that. So 4 priorities for the district. We won't go back and repeat. Student excellence, staff excellence, operational excellence, and our community partnerships. I'm going to go through this quickly. Has some stock photos in there. Just as a reminder, members, particularly students who attend the School District of Janesville or other public schools but reside in the School District of Janesville, are what we are able to count for members. Members, we have a revenue limit value per member. This has been our enrollment and membership over the last decade. So we are in a downward trend. Someone may say, well, if you're in a downward trend, can you cut expenses? Even if we were to lose 190 students in a year, that on average is 10 per building. And then when you break it out by grade level. So we're not necessarily reducing sections, even if we were to lose 190 students. You saw at the last staffing report from Carrie Mickelson as well as Superintendent Holtzman, there have been adjustments related to our enrollment. Why do districts need to go to referendum? Simply because the state funding formula has not kept pace with CPI. Had the state funding formula kept pace with CPI, we would have today an additional $29 million. Remember, we're asking for 14.5 and potentially more pending the results of the survey. Even then, we would not be at where we are at in terms of keeping pace with inflation. When you do factor in our operating referendum at 14.5 million, as well as per student categorical aid, you have seen this graph before. This year alone, we still had an $8.6 million funding gap. This is the revenue limit per pupil floor adjustments over time. You'll see lots of gaps. This is when the formula is not fully funded. And even some of those increases you see are not CPI-based increases. Oh, there's an increase in 2021. Okay, most likely not tied to CPI. There's a lot of detail here. I want to focus, if you will, on the fiscal year 27. That is what we are entering this next fiscal year. When you look at column 27, you will see our 3-year average enrollment. We are projecting to be 149 less. When we are 149 less, even when you add in the current 2-year operating referendum of 14.5, you can see the growth in our revenue limit authority, line 11, is $1.6 million. That's our growth. Health insurance alone is nearly 75% of that at 1.3 million-ish, let alone our raises. So when we work through staffing and we look at other budget adjustments, we are looking to balance. That is our priority administratively to the board, is to present a balanced budget come October. But this is our challenge. Right? We don't have enough in terms of the revenue limit authority. Not all the students are in the same section, and we have rising costs that are not keeping, and our revenues are not keeping pace with CPI. And CPI is just keeping pace, let alone expanding programs and services to our students. If you look at no referendum in 28, you can see we would have a $14.7 million reduction, right, in our revenue limit authority. Line 12 is about aid. I just threw that in. It's really not germane, but why did I throw it in? Because aid is always part of the revenue limit equation. If we put forward a question to the community and it was supported at 19.5 million, right? We would see that additional 5 million right there in row column by the red arrow. So you can say, oh, you asked for 5 million. What we would need is 4.7 million. So we do have, from a revenue standpoint, a little bit of room. Could we ask for 19.3 million? We could. The survey results will certainly provide administration and the board with some guidance. Sometimes we can fall into the math trap, and that is really the intent is, well, you have 9,000 students, you're getting $300, 325, you're gonna have 2.7 million, plus you're gonna ask for another, you really need $8 million to run? Well, we're not really getting $8 million because the 2.7, as illustrated in the 27 column, is not coming to fruition. We are receiving 1.6. We only have 149 less students across 29 buildings. That is what we are modeling. So really trying to emphasize, and what you'll see in May is kind of, and when you may say, well, you're not looking at expenditures, right? And so when we look at our revenue limit worksheet, that is between local taxes and state aid. We certainly have additional revenues. Some of those were highlighted during the audit report, right? But yet, we always need to have a balanced budget. Right? Revenue cap is really a spending cap. It's just federal and state grants, as well as local sources such as gate receipts and mobile home taxes that receive above and beyond the district's revenue limit authority. Because it's always balanced, I'm focusing right now on revenue, but in fairness, we'll take a look at expenses next month. Why do you need that? We have 1.6 million next year projected. That's not enough. May is the expenditure review. Just wanted to hit some of that budget planning for you, particularly as you hear the survey coming out. The survey, we are asking our community to return prior to the Memorial Day holiday. That's why it's going out. You'll have a report to the board in June, right, in terms of the direction that the community is willing to support. Any questions on some of the budget planning? Again, thank you for your patience. We are getting along into the evening.
Seeing none, thank you. Next item, information on the district's facility work request platform.
This is it. I'll probably lean into Dave and Dave. Again, the evening is getting long. We just wanted to share some information. We are probably about 9 months into using Incident IQ, which is our work request platform. We actually selected a different platform that was not working out well for us. So last summer we shifted to Incident IQ, or IIQ as we say here internally. It is also the same platform that our IT department uses for its work request. This work request platform is really meant to replace School Dude, kind of a very odd name, but yet a name of a, at one time I would say, relevant platform. Again, we have 4 priorities, and really our focus currently is on the operational excellence priority. We completed 93% of training of our full-time staff. We still have some staff to make up. We were going to have a planning meeting and start to execute that, but we had a little bit of a weather incident, so that kind of delayed. As you see, we really have about a half a dozen or so staff that we need to make up for, bring them in. They're most likely using the system, but to take them through the formal aspect is something we need in order to complete our target of 100%. Plus, we always have transition. When we look at Incident IQ, we're looking at response time, which is essentially an acknowledgement of the work request. Resolution is completing or providing resolution to the request. So we're monitoring that time. Currently, we're operating from a rather simple view in terms of 1 day and 5 day for resolution. If it's an HVAC issue, simply because of the complexity of the system, we actually have a 10-day resolution time for that. This is a snip, if you will, and this goes back to March. But you can see at this point in time, there were essentially nearly 3,900 work requests completed by the facilities team. The average response time was 2.5, and the resolution 4 days. So part of this, as we implemented a new software, is really working through, right, how is this software working? How is our customer using it? How are we utilizing it? How do we monitor our response and resolution times? As we take our staff through the curve, right, and we view this we view this really as coaching opportunities in terms of you haven't put that work request on hold. It's for spring work, and it's been on the clock for a number of days. And working with our staff as they become more comfortable to, in that example, place it on hold, thereby stopping the resolution time and not extending it. So we can't have it out there in limbo. Right, so Dave and Dave have been working with their teams. Kara as well, and Julie at times has provided us some assistance. This is Craig High School. Right, so this is a snapshot in time. 553 work requests. This is, I think, back in March. Response 6.5, resolution 8.4. That's not good enough. That's not because our staff over there are not working, right? It's getting them more comfortable with the system, managing the system. Plus, 2, it affords us the opportunity to where we may need additional resources. Right, so we can have tons of work requests, but do we have the capacity to execute those work requests? Right? We know that better as we monitor, measure, and manage the system. This is our HVAC technician. So shout out to Dave Martin. 2.3 response, 4.1 resolution, 422 work requests. Kudos to Dave. That's pretty good. You're going to say it's an HVAC technician. And this is where I'm going to remind the committee and the board, if we ever were to present to the full board, is we have 2.1 million square feet. We have 1 HVAC technician. So when we talk about our utility costs, when we talk about the volume of work, right, how we're measuring and monitoring, right, we need to do that really well in order to potentially make investments to improve that customer service. Right. So if you think of if we had 1.8 million square feet, right? That's a lot of 1,800 square foot homes with a lot of furnaces and a lot of users. And we have one technician. Now, we do outsource. Outsource comes as a price, right? So how do we potentially switch that in order to provide better resolution to our customers' needs? This is just giving you some percentages in terms of SLA, service level arrangement, agreement. Julie, what is it? Agreement? That's the response time. 77% were meeting in target. At that point in time, back in March, resolution 82%. The red is bad. We want more green than we do red. And that's district-wide. And again, some of that is just our staff becoming more comfortable with how the system is being used. We have a couple of objectives. Again, we're a tad behind on our 100-day plan. Really working with our site agent. We call them agents in Incident IQ. Those are our maintenance and custodial staff. Right, and just looking at refining our workflows. And that's just an example of some boxes that we are working on. This is more of an illustrative effect because you go, well, it's a work request. Okay, it ranges, if you will, from a pencil sharpener, right, to perhaps replacing a univentilator or a small capital project, right? The gamut is wide, which is why we see different fields. Different colors represent different actions. Green is essentially taking care of it at the building. Yellow is going to the district office. I think B, and I can't read that, is really engaging a contractor. Red is, if you will, that is a large capital project. And yellow is we have no capacity to do that. Yeah, I'll give you an example. Harrison would love an expanded parking lot. No doubt. It's a $500,000. There's a lot of other needs before that $500,000 expansion at the Harrison parking lot. We're a little bit behind on the April 1st in terms of completing 100% of our staff. We really need to start focusing on that onboarding, what that document looks like, translating Incident IQ to someone's orientation. That's our training objectives. Objective 2 is just really looking at these processes. How does this work? Dr. DeBeon at Craig goes, well, I'd like some new mirrors. How does this work? I talked to Gabe. All right, well, it's again working with Gabe, who is our site manager, on, okay, do you know how the process works? And how do we work through that process, right? So that here at the ESC, the process is actually getting taken care of at Craig, not necessarily coming here. Here, we actually have internal controls that Dave and Julie have at their disposal to monitor the process so that things are taken care of at Craig. And June, really working on our workflow. We have to outline and flow chart these steps because that helps us understand the process and it aids in our training as well. Any questions for Dave, Julie, or myself?
No questions, but thank you. This has come a long ways from where it used to be, and it's nice to see us moving forward.
Yeah, we're getting there. A lot of work on this group's part.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. All right. Our last item we don't need to do because we don't know who the committee will be. So we will figure that out tomorrow. So thank you, and we are adjourned.